This is the IFF TV podcast.
It's me, Gary Spain, joined by Paul Tierney for the League of Ireland show. How are you today, Paul?
I'm good, Gary. I'm good. Looking forward to getting stuck into a couple of matches. Obviously, I was at Shells myself on Friday evening, and that was a great result for them. Obviously, we'll move on to them shortly. But yeah, looking forward to it ahead of another busy week and a couple of games last night as well.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend. I actually had the weekend off because, unfortunately, with the First Division, Treaty United had no game, and I only went to see rugby at the weekend. No football for me, for a change. But I'll be back into it next weekend. So, well, without further ado, let's start at the top of the table, and because there were some crucial matches both on Friday and Monday. And we'll start with the league leaders, or who were the league leaders, and that's Derry City. A 1-1 draw in the Brandywell with Bohemians. Bohs took the lead through Promise Omacher, and a Will Patching penalty in the first half equalised for Derry. But they've had this now. I appreciate they've scored a lot of goals in some games, but they have struggled to break teams down, and it proved to be their undoing on Friday night.
Yeah, definitely. Fair play to Bohs as well, by the way. Bohs have been improving a fair bit the last couple of weeks, it's got to be said, besides maybe losing to Rovers. I saw Bohs last week against UCD. They were very impressive. It was a handy 3-0 win for them. And I think Keith Long has steadied the ship, really, because it was looking pretty rocky there for a while. But he steadied the ship, and a great result up in Derry. In terms of Derry, drop points again. It's probably points Rovers aren't going to drop, if you think about it in reality. So disappointing for Derry, and we'll continue to talk about them in a minute, obviously. But look, a great result for Bohs. Bohs are a decent side. I think they should be doing better than they are as well with the players they have, especially up the front end of the pitch. And yeah, disappointing for Derry, but they'll go again, and obviously they've got a massive game this Friday night against Rovers down in Tallaght. So yeah, they can make up for the two results there with a win in Tallaght. Maybe, we don't know. We have to wait and see.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, a very impressive point for Bohs, and as you say, they have appeared to turn the corner a bit. And they're just that little bit behind the likes of Sligo, Dundalk, and Pats, but there's really nothing in it. And I think that those four will probably swap positions quite a bit between now and the end of the season. And if we stick with Derry and moving on, we've already touched on Monday night, because the same old failing in front of goal. And Derry had gone to Inchicore, what was it, 10 days ago, and put 4 past St. Pat's. Hugely impressive statement win. Yet the home game in the Brandywell, and they failed to break them down, and a scoreless draw. And again, a far, far better point for Pats than it was for the home side.
Yeah, definitely. You got to give credit to Pats there. They would have been a bit frightened maybe of it to happen again. But look, they held on, they held well, and look, it's a great point for Pats. In terms of Derry, it's more drop points. They'll be disappointed. I did see a couple of things on Twitter saying that Derry did play quite well. They just struggled to break them down, like you said. And that can become a problem. If that continues to happen in the next couple of weeks, that could become a bit of a rut for them. It probably won't, but look, a great result for Pats. Fair play to them. They've again a team who've been very up and down so far this season, when people might have expected them to do better. But look, a great point, and maybe they can go and build on that as well. They are still in third, probably a bit too far off the top two already. But look, they'll be looking to make that third place their own and guarantee Europe for next season, as well as having it this season too.
Yeah, definitely. And now maybe moving on to the champions, and now the actual league leaders, who went into Friday night's matches actually 3 points behind Derry City, and came out on Monday night a point clear at the top. A big weekend for Shamrock Rovers. They began the weekend with a reasonably comfortable, I think it's fair to say, even though I believe Harps played quite well, a comfortable 3-1 home win over Finn Harps. 3 first half goals. Pico Lopez gave them the lead, and 2 goals from Danny Mandreo before Conor Tourish pulled one back for Harps just before the break. But by all accounts, I believe it was a comfortable enough win for Rovers. They weren't really tested. And I suppose from a Finn Harp's point of view, these are the games maybe that they don't expect to get too much out of. And I suppose they didn't get anything out of. But and then moving on to Monday night, another 3-1 win for Shamrock Rovers. But this one was a bit different, because they really struggled against Sligo Rovers in the first half. It was scoreless, and I've seen it described as the worst half of football from a Shamrock Rovers side for quite some time. And well, Stephen Bradley, the manager who's very much in the news and very much in demand these days, he didn't mess about. He made 4 changes at half time. Now, I think people are saying he did maybe with one eye to Friday night, did do a bit of squad rotation anyway. But Andy Lyons, Chris McCann, Graham Burke and Rory Gaffney all came off the bench. And Graham Burke got a hat-trick in 14 minutes to effectively win the game. Aidan Keane got one back later on. But it inspired substitutions there by Stephen Bradley.
Yeah, definitely. You've got to give him credit there. Probably need as well. From what I seen on Twitter as well, a lot of the talk was the work from Gaffney, especially when he came on, really helped Rovers, and maybe they didn't have that when he wasn't on. But yeah, Graham Burke getting the hat-trick, we know he's got ability, we know he's got an eye for goal, there's no surprise there, but a 14-minute hat-trick is pretty impressive for anyone, to be honest. 2 big results for Rovers. I think the biggest result for them, though, really is keeping Stephen Bradley, like you and Paul were talking about last week. That's a massive one. And really, they'd been up and down at the start of the season, but since they got that late win at Tolka Park, maybe besides drawing with Sligo last weekend, they've been pretty much A1. So you got to give them credit there. They're the champions. They're shown signs of being champions once again. They're the strongest squad in the league by a fair way. And look, I think it was the right decision by Stephen Bradley. I think there's a big opportunity to get into Europe for Shamrock Rovers this year, and if they do, it'll be fantastic for the league. And I think if they do get into the likes of the Europa League and the Conference League, they're good enough to compete, and that's what they should be looking at. And I think that's what Stephen Bradley is looking at as well. But 2 massive results in the league, it's given them the advantage going into Friday, and I think they can go, if they win on Friday, it's 5 points clear. Is it? I think
it's 4. I think they're 1 point clear at the moment, so they'd go 4 clear if they win on Friday. But that would be a real statement, and to open the gap of more than 1 game would. Well, I don't think Derry are going to want to fall 4 points behind. Now, if Derry win, they go back on top. Although if I was Derry, I'd certainly be very happy with a point in Tala.
Yeah,
but, it's a massive game, and I appreciate you going to that. It's going to be a big night, and hopefully a sellout crowd. I mean, I know we can sell out the Dublin derbies pretty much no problem, but this is, if anything, is even bigger than a Rovers Bows. Maybe not the same. Maybe not mean as much to the fans as beating Bows, but certainly a win for Rovers on Friday night would be massive. As indeed, Derry came down, talked about 11 days ago, they came down to Dublin and put 4 past St. Pat's and called it a real statement win. And maybe other results haven't gone their way since, but it would certainly be massive if Derry could come down and win in Tala. That would be a real statement win. But it's going to be a cracking match. Just one more thing, actually, and a bit of praise for the FAI on this, because I think it's actually a great move. The 4 clubs in Europe, the fixtures were set up so the 4 of them were due to play around the time that Europe was starting, and the games were all brought forward to Monday night. And I think that's a really smart move. And I think we should do everything we can to help our clubs in Europe. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate for the clubs, for the other clubs, I know it's not ideal. You might have Shamrock Rovers coming on a Friday night, and suddenly, because they're in Europe, the game gets moved, and it can cost clubs a lot of money. But so it makes sense to have the 4 of them play each other and then bring the games forward a couple of months. So that was a really good move, and I hope that continues. It's good to see. And certainly we're talking about Rovers reaching the group stages. It would be fantastic for the league and not just for them. And we were talking last week, they're actually confirmed as seeded in the first round of the Champions League, which is absolutely crucial, because if you go out in the first round of the Champions League, you go straight to the conference, and it's much harder to get to group stage football. Whereas if you go through in the Champions League and then you drop out, you drop down to the Europa League, and then if you lose again, you drop down to the conference. So to get group stage football, the best chance is to get through your first Champions League game, and being seeded is absolutely massive for Rovers on that. And hopefully they'll get a good draw and make the most out of that.
Yeah, so, and I agree with you on the FAI moving the games as well. I think if you look in other countries as well, when they're playing in the group stage of the Champions League, they generally play on the Friday or the Saturday morning before it. And like, if they are helping their teams when they're in European competition, why shouldn't everyone, you know? And I always feel like we've kind of, not the FAI, but in England in particular, they've always struggled with that because it might affect TV audiences or something like that. Because say if you move Liverpool to a Saturday morning, okay, they're still going to be watched, but we all know Saturday morning games are not the greatest usually. But you get what I'm getting at. We should all be trying to help them. We want them to get into Europe because that'll improve the interest in our league as well, and it will bring more money to the league too, which is what we want.
Yeah, no, in fairness, I actually think we've always been very good at helping our clubs in Europe.
We have.
It's a good point about the Premier League. I suppose my point was, to some degree, it actually hurts our other clubs sometimes that they end up playing on a Sunday night. You know, I mean, if the likes of Drogheda, Sligo Rovers, etc., we're having Shamrock Rovers. Now, I haven't looked ahead to the fixtures in July, but having Shamrock Rovers coming on a Friday night's a big difference to having them at 5 or 6 o'clock on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So, but I agree. It's and the Premier League don't really do that. They don't really help their clubs, or indeed the Scottish League. And but it is something that we do well. And I thought it was a great move, as I said, to have the 4 European teams playing on the Monday night.
Yeah.
So if we move on and to another, we'll talk about Pats, because we talked about Derry's statement win in Inchicore, but obviously a 4-0 defeat at home to Derry had been a real blow to St. Pat's. But they bounced back big time, not just with the draw and the Brandywell we've already talked about, but on Friday night they went to Drogheda and they won 4-0, and that was a real hammering. Dara Burns after 4 minutes. Owen Doyle, he's got his scoring boots on lately. He made it 2-0 on 36. Billy King made it 3 with 20 minutes to go. And Kyle Robinson, somebody who impressed me very much with Wexford last season. He's getting his chance with Pats now. I know he was only on loan at Wexford. He was a Pats under-19 player. And he got, he just actually came off the bench and scored the 4th goal with about 4 minutes to go. And so an impressive turnaround from Pats. First of all, for 2 tricky away games, to go to Drogheda and win 4-0. And then, as we talked about, to get the scoreless draw on the Brandywell.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a big result up in Drogheda. I saw Drogheda a couple of weeks ago against UCD, and they were fantastic. They were solid. They looked like they weren't going to concede many goals, and they looked like they worked extremely hard. Losing 4-0 at home is a bit of it's not great for them, really, to be honest. But look, it shows Pats do have quality there. Like, okay, maybe they can get hammered one week, but then they can go and hammer someone the next week. I think that's kind of been their season, to be honest. You think of when they won the first game of the season, they lost the next 2, and then they beat Rovers. So I think it's just one of those teams. Obviously, Tim Clancy's just come in. He's trying to get it right. It's going to be hard because there's a lot of new players there as well. But good to see Owen Doyle on the score sheet, and Kyle Robinson. I'll agree with you as well. I saw him for Wexford once last year against Cabinteely. I think he got both that night, and it was their first win of the season, like 2 months in, and he was fantastic. And he's a very, very talented player, and I think that's what Pats are going to be doing this year, is chopping and changing as much as they can, getting the young lads involved. And look, it'll probably work for them in the end. I mean, it's going to be a fight for 3rd spot for them, really, to be honest, with the rest of the league. I think the top two are going to kick on in the next few weeks. But yeah, fair play to Pats. Massive result. Draw, they'll be very disappointed, and they'll need to bounce back again this Friday.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, third spot is a guaranteed European place, and maybe a bit like the Premier League across the water. Top four can be crucial because it does mean Europe. Normally, fourth place, assuming one of the top four wins the cup. And who knows, maybe Pats could be a good outside bet to retain the cup. But it's and it is going to be a bit of a battle there for those top four spots. I mean, you have Pats; they currently are in third place, but they've got Dundalk, Sligo, and Bohs breathing down their necks, and it's going to be a real battle. But and as you say, talking about the young players coming through, I mean, Darragh Burns is still very young as well, but he's already a season starter, one of Pat's best players already. So yeah, it's probably a good club there, and Tim Clancy doing a good job. Maybe catching the top two, as you say. I think they will pull away. I don't think that's realistic, but certainly third spot is very much up for grabs. So maybe we move on, and a team that probably had been on a very good run and will probably be disappointed not to be in that third spot is Dundalk. They had gone on a good run. They had some impressive wins, having had maybe a bit of an iffy start, but they went to UCD on Friday night. They led through Paul Doyle early on, and then did Andy Boyle sent off for a really rash challenge. And I mean, I think he had to foul the guy. He was gone past him, but it wasn't the other half of the pitch. It didn't need to be as bad as it was. And you give the referee a decision, and it probably was the right decision. It was a red card. And so, but even with 10 men, Dundalk went 2-0 up through a Patrick Hooban penalty. And you have to think then against UCD, who hadn't had a win all season, that they should be able to see the game out. But, well, the man who was very much in the goals last season, not so much this season, Colin Whelan, came back with two. He got one back pretty much a few minutes after Patrick Hooban's goal, right on the hour. And he converted a penalty 14 minutes from time. And I believe if anyone was going to win the game in the last 14 minutes, it was going to be UCD, that they pushed forward. Liam Kerrigan was causing Dundalk a lot of problems as well. And if anything, UCD will be a little bit disappointed not to have finally got the win for this season. But I think Dundalk will be very disappointed because, well, they were in a battle, I think, for the European spots. And I'm sure they're going to be looking at it and saying, when Sligo Rovers, when Bohs, and when St. Pat's go to UCD, they would expect to win. I'm not saying they're going to win. It's always difficult to go there. But what do you think? 2 points drop for Dundalk?
Oh yeah, 100%. Especially on the form they were on. I saw them a few weeks ago up in Oriel against Shells, and whereas I wasn't impressed with them. I think they keep the ball well, but they lack a bit of cutting edge at times. They still went out and won the game, and they got Shells at exactly the right time, and they won 2-1. Then they beat Drogheda last week as well, which is another good result, always, considering they lost to them in the first game of the season. Obviously, being 2-0 up is great, but I mean, being down to 10 men is hard. You've got to change all your tactics. And I mean, by the sounds of it, Colin Whelan got the goal right at the right time to pull one back anyway, just after Dundalk scored. You and me both know UCD are very, very good going forward and very, very good when they have the ball. So, look, if they're playing against one less man, there's always a chance for them. And Colin Whelan's a natural goal scorer. That's 4 for the season for him now. Probably still disappointed he hasn't got a few more. But look, it's a poor result for Dundalk, really. But I think they'll bounce back because Stephen O'Donnell will get into them. They'll bounce back. And in terms of UCD, that elusive win, I mean, they've been close a couple of times now, particularly against Sligo and against Dundalk on Friday. I don't think they will go the season without a win, but it's getting pretty precarious now anyway. I think it's inevitable they're going to go down, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, listen, it's a battling performance from UCD, and look, Dundalk could be disappointed with the point, but by the sounds of it, they're probably lucky to get away with one in the end.
Yeah, I think definitely when it came back to 2-2, there was only going to be one winner,
Hmm.
and they're probably happy to see it out in the end. And finally, in the Premier Division, we'll come to your game on Friday night, and a massive, massive statement win, a first home win. It's a fantastic week for Shells, because the news that Tolka Park has been saved came out, and then a first home win, 2-1 against Sligo Rovers. A brilliant goal from Jack Moylan, and
Hmm.
then another from Sean Boyd in the first half made it 2-0. And Patrick Kirk got one back for Sligo in the second half. But a very impressive win for Shells.
Yeah, definitely. First half performance in particular was very, very good. I thought JJ Lunny being in the midfield with Mark Coyle was a lot better than Aid Irvin and Mark Coyle. I thought they had a bit more bite about them going forward, and they had someone who has a bit of a bit of a better brain going forward. I'm not criticizing the two lads, but JJ Lunny did, and he was actually man of the match on Friday as well. Sean Boyd ran him very close as well. Sean Boyd's been brilliant this season. Um, yeah, I mean, listen, Sligo didn't really turn up in the first half at all. Obviously, Liam Buckley got them in at half time, spoke to them, and they were much better in the second half, got the goal early on. But even after they got their goal, there wasn't anything stand out for them. Like, I can only think of one other Shells chance in the second half where Ed McGinty made a fantastic double save. Now, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but one of the saves in particular, I don't know how he saved it. Don't know how he kept it out. But great win for Shells. Really, really needed that first home win. And look, Damien Duff was obviously suspended. That's disappointing for him. But I thought Joey O'Brien was very good on the line. He was getting into the players. You could, especially on the side of the media, you know yourself from Tolka Park, you can hear every word they say in those dugouts. And yeah, I thought it was brilliant. And Sean Boyd was excellent once again. But I think the main thing for Shells was the midfield. JJ Lunny coming in alongside Mark Coyle. I thought they just had a bit more bite going forward with that and a bit more of a killer pass. And that's what saw them through in the end. Great for Jack Moylan as well to get his first goal. I think one criticism that the Shells fans would have had of him so far this season was that he didn't shoot enough. Well, he shot on Friday and he scored a wonder goal as well. And the two goals are pretty much identical as well. Now, especially for Sean Boyd's when he wasn't really pressed by the Sligo defence, so he just kind of had a free shot. But Moylan's goal was fantastic. We know he's got great feet. We've seen him a lot last year as well. And great to see him get off the mark too. And great for Shells to get off the mark at Tolka too.
Yeah, a crucial win for Shells, and they're gone 5 points. Having lost in Ballybofey, they're now gone 5 points clear of Finn Harps, who are in the playoff position. And Shells are 10 points clear of UCD for the automatic relegation spot. So starting just with that little bit of form, and if they can keep this going, they can start to pull away from the relegation zone. And who knows, maybe look upwards, 4 points behind Bowes. Maybe they can get into the battle for the European places, because as we said, fourth could well be a European spot. So,
yeah, they've got the next game is Drogheda at home on Friday as well, which is another massive one for both of them. If they can get another 3 points against Drogheda, they'll be flying as well. And I just wanted to say as well, if I did catch up with Conor Kane briefly after the game on Friday, so you can have a look at that brief interview now. I actually just asked him about Tolka Park as well, and he gave a very good answer. So have a look at that there, guys. Thanks.
yeah, and that was Conor Kane there talking to Paul. And yeah, to complete an absolutely superb week for Shells, the women's team, who got incredible support on Saturday, beat Peamount, and the champions now have gone 5 points clear of the Women's National League, that ahead of Peamount, obviously, and that was a crucial win. So, look, great days if you're a Shells fan, and things are certainly looking good. But I think for me, the biggest story and the best news was Tolka Park is saved, because we look, even as a neutral, we need as many football grounds in this city as we can, and Tolka has always been a great venue.
Yeah.
So
huge news. I think well needed. And look, even though it still needs a lick of paint, it still needs to be done up. The main thing is it's still going to be there. I don't think anyone wanted to move to Dalymount. I don't think Bowes wanted Shells and Dalymount either, which is completely justified. And look, Shells are Shells. They play in Tolka Park. They don't play in Dalymount. That's all I'll have to say on that.
Yeah, no, and I mean, even it's a historic ground from the old Drumcondra, who were in one of the biggest clubs in the league back in the day. I know they're long gone. You'd have to have a few grey hairs like me to have seen them play, and I only saw them at the very end of the days. But when they were in decline, but it's great. I mean, Tolka Park is part of the landscape in football in this country, and it's great to see it survive. So maybe if we move on to the First Division, and some crucial games over the weekend in the First Division as well. And I'll start. I want to start with the league leaders, Cork City, and something I've probably said a few times in this show, that Cork had been basically battering teams, including Treaty United, unfortunately. And Galway have been kind of, well, in a typical John Caulfield fashion, because it's not luck. They've been grinding them out, and I did question as to whether Cork were actually, which is a real sign of champions, whether you can grind out a win when you're not playing well. Well, I got my answer on Friday night, because Cork went to Athlone, who, despite being bottom of the table, it's a tough place to go and get a result. They went a goal down in the first minute to Thomas Alua. They did. Stephen Kenny got a second yellow for Athlone. So Athlone went down to 10 men in the second half, and Cian Murphy did pull one back. But just when it looked like it was dead and over, Aaron Bulger sticks one in from about 30 yards in the 94th minute to win it for Cork. And I only saw it in the stream, but I'll tell you, there was some celebrations, and it's a big statement win. And maybe even to win a game like that can maybe even for Colin Healy, maybe even matter more than your 3 or 4-0 hammerings they've been, and 6 and whatever else they're dishing out to teams. So big statement win for Cork there in Athlone.
Yeah, 100%. When I saw it on Friday, I was keeping an eye on it every so often. But when I saw that they were 1-0 down after a minute, I was shocked, because usually that can really affect you. I mean, but look, fair play to Cork. They've been brilliant all season from the first game. I was at the first game of the season. They beat Bray 6-0. I mean, that's a super start, and they're probably still buzzing from that, really, to be honest. They've, as you said, they've beaten a few teams heavily as well. But yeah, brilliant from Cork. I mean, they're a massive club, massive club, and particularly in Ireland. And look, they'll be looking to bounce straight back with automatic promotion as well. Obviously, Galway are still on their tail, but they've been brilliant so far and completely justify that top spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I've seen them a couple of times, and even in the Munster Cup, they hammered my team, Treaty United, 3-0 as well to reach the Munster Cup final. Even
You're sick of the sight of them, Gary. You're sick of the sight of them.
Absolutely. It's 10-0 in 3 games already this year. But we did beat them twice last season and drew the other one. So maybe I can live off last season. But actually, talking about teams that had been grinding out wins, Galway did exactly the opposite. They went to St. Coleman's Park in Cove on Friday night and absolutely battered Cove Ramblers 4-0. Maxwell Hemmings gave them the lead in 20 minutes, and then 2 goals from Ed McCarthy, who they actually signed, who had played for Treaty last season. He got 2 in the last 9 minutes of the first half. And Manu Dimas, I think he came off the bench to grab the 4th late on. And very comfortable win for Galway. And they're 3 points behind Cork, but they do have a game in hand. So John Caulfield is still hot on the heels of his former club.
Yeah, definitely. He's been there, a season and a half now, and he'll be disappointed that they haven't gained promotion yet. I think they got to the playoffs both times, were beaten both times, once by Longford and once by Bray. Listen, I think with John, they're always going to be thereabouts. Whether they have enough of a cutting edge to win the league like Cork do, I think that's probably the issue. But they're, as you said, it's only 3 points. They have a game in hand. They're right on their heels. And look, again, another big club and another Connacht club as well, which, I mean, you look at the 5 Dublin teams in the top division this year, probably needs to be a bit more spread out. I know it's justified that the 5 Dublin teams are there, but it probably does need to be a bit more spread out. And it's good to see Cork and Galway at the top anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah, we've talked before about the geography in the league. And I mean, the southernmost team in the league at the moment is Shamrock Rovers. And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But as you say, everybody is there on merit, and we cannot. You can't rejig the league just because of geography. It has to be done on merit as it is.
Yeah.
And speaking of a southern team, Waterford, another team that have found a bit of form again recently. They went to the Carlisle grounds against a team that's out of form, and they beat Bray Wanderers 4-1. Phoenix Patterson, who's probably the star performer for me for Waterford this season, he made it 1-0 in the 23rd minute, and Shane Griffin made it 2-0 9 minutes into the second half. Kevin Knight did spark a flurry of fight back. He got one back with 2 minutes to go, but 2 goals in the 90th and 93rd minute from Lewis Britton made it probably seem a bit more comfortable than it was for Waterford, but still an impressive win for Waterford, who I don't think they're going to catch the top 2, but they certainly look good for third spot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously the blip they had, they did start very well, but obviously the blip they had has made them fall off. If they do want to catch up with those 2, they're going to have to beat them. Yeah, I don't know how many more times they have to play them, but they're going to have to beat them at least once to be within touching distance, and even then it's probably going to be too much. Great result for them. I think you look at last year, they relegated themselves, really, didn't they? Which was unfortunate because they put up a hell of a fight towards the end of the season. There's some very, very talented players there. You look at Brian Murphy in goal. Phoenix Patterson has proved he's a very, very good player and is capable of playing at the higher level as well. Louis Britton's got a couple of goals this year as well. They're a good side, Waterford, but that blip they've had has kind of killed maybe the automatic chances. But I'd always fancy a team who get into the playoffs and get to the final over the team who finish in second bottom, because if you finish second bottom, you deserve to go down, in my opinion. I understand it creates more interest, but you deserve to go down. It's simple as. And you're obviously going to be out in form for most of the season. So, yeah, if you look at it that way, yeah. In terms of Bray, there's not much that can be said on Bray at the minute. I mean, you think of how close they came to promotion in the first season with COVID, and now look at where it is now. Even last year, beating Galway in the playoffs as well, only beaten by UCD at Dalymount. I mean, there's not much you can say, really, is it? We saw the scenes with Pat Devlin and the fans a couple of weeks ago. Not great. They need to get firing on the pitch, and they need to get interest. They need to take interest away from off the pitch matters, and they need to get it back onto the pitch. You get what I'm trying to say, don't you?
Yeah, and they're not out because of the playoffs, and because 2nd to 5th gets a playoff. They're still very, very much in the playoff hunt. And Bray actually come to Limerick on Friday night to play Treaty United, and if they were to win that, they'd only be 1 point, potentially 1 point off 5th spot and the playoffs now. I'm obviously hoping they don't, but it will be it's a crucial game, because I think it's between Treaty, Bray and Wexford for the 5th spot. And the team I haven't mentioned so far is Longford Town, and I think because they have come down from the Premier Division, and they had another an important win, and just to keep themselves that bit ahead. They're probably in touch with Waterford. Actually, if they win their game in hand, they'd go ahead of Waterford, but I would fancy Waterford over the course of the season to finish ahead of Longford. But a big win for Longford over Wexford, and I must admit I was cheering when they got that late winner. Jack Doherty had given Wexford a 2nd-minute lead, and Longford came back in the 25th minute through Eric Malloy, and it actually looked, for all intents and purposes, it was going to finish 1-1, and right at the death. Well, Larkin Fitzgerald got a red card in the 94th minute, and Sam Verdon with a fantastic header from a free kick won it for Longford in the 94th minute. And big win for Longford. They're up to 21 points in 4th place. As I said, 2 behind Waterford, 2 far back. I mean, they're 11 back on Galway, even with a game in hand. They're 14 back on Cork with 2 games in hand. They're not going to catch... they're not going to win the league, but I think they're pretty much nailed on. They're 5 points ahead of Treaty in 5th and 6 ahead of Wexford, who are their closest challengers for the playoffs. So I think even at this stage, the top four is pretty much the top four. And I think Treaty, Wexford and Bray, probably, I think Cove may be a bit too far back, but it's going to be a battle between Treaty, Wexford and Bray for the last playoff spot. And as I said, Treaty United v Bray on Friday night in the Markets Field is going to be a crucial game in that.
Yeah, definitely. Just on Longford as well. 2 big defeats for them before that win there on Saturday. They probably needed that win a lot. They did lose. Was it Cork away and Galway away? So
they lost to both of them away.
Yeah. 2 big defeats. Now, if they'd got something from both of them, I'd say they still would have had a slight chance of maybe competing at the top. But yeah, I mean, listen, you look at Gary Cronin's side. I've seen a lot of them. Gary Cronin's sides. Obviously, he was with Bray before this. It's clearly a very, very similar squad. He brought a lot of them up with him. He plays the same sort of football. I mean, they're going to be thereabouts in the playoffs, and they'll compete in the playoffs as well. But yeah, I mean, listen, a great win for them. Wexford as well, it's got to be said, have been massively improved on last year. It's got to be said. And they look a threat. They could get into those playoffs. As you said, it's probably going to be the top 4, and then between Treaty, Bray and Wexford for that final spot. But yeah, I mean, look, it's always an interesting division. I think it kind of gets glossed over a lot of the time, but it shouldn't be, because it's very, very interesting all the time.
Yeah, and tricky one for Wexford and for John Caulfield's Galway, because Galway go to Wexford on Friday night. And I think following on from the winning Cove, I think Galway, well, this is their chance. This is actually, I think Cork are actually free. So this is their game in hand as such, with the team free every week. So that would give Galway the chance to join Cork at the top of the table ahead of their game in just over 2 weeks, when they meet at Eamon DC Park. And I know they got to meet another couple of times before the end of the season, but even already that game is shaping up to be pretty crucial. So, well, I think there you have it, folks. That's the review for this week. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys. See you after. Thanks, Gary.